Good afternoon and thanks for joining us here on Kalkine Media. We have some trending news to share with you. Today is day 4 of P&O's Pacific Explorer cruise setting sail post-pandemic. And once again, joining us live to fill us in is Kalkine Media's Rose Jacobs, who is there with the President of P&O, Marguerite Fitzgerald. Thanks for joining us, Rose.
G'day, Holly. Yes, as you've said, it's day 4 of this really significant cruise as we've set sail the very first commercial cruise back in Australian waters post-pandemic. And I have just had a really wonderful interview with the President and CEO of P&O Australia and also of Carnival Cruise Lines Australia, Marguerite Fitzgerald. Marguerite's only been in the role since this year, and so it's quite an interesting role that she has stepped into, following on from what has been 2 months and more than 19 days now of lockdown for the cruise industry around the world. And I had a really interesting one-on-one chat with Marguerite. She actually described this as not being post-pandemic. We are still in the pandemic, according to her views, and certainly in the way that the ships are being managed. And she calls it now a matter of living with the pandemic. That's been the general way that the operations have been adopted here for any passengers and crew aboard the ships, and certainly for the foreseen future as well. And I was able to ask Marguerite some really interesting broader things about cruising, considering some of the geopolitical tensions that are happening with Russia, and the amount of crude oil that is currently sitting, Russian crude oil, around 62 million barrels are sitting in vessels stranded at sea, essentially with no one able to purchase them or to use that oil because of the sanctions against Russia following the invasion of Ukraine. So I was able to ask Marguerite what her thoughts were on that and the increased demand that is now this double-edged sword, with passengers now back on board cruise ships, cruising back underway, aviation as well. It's not cruising, but massive amounts of demand for more oil in order to power these extra ships that are now back in the oceans. So it's this double-edged sword, as I mentioned. It's a bit of a tragic irony that we don't have access to the oil where there's suddenly a new demand for it, and there's oil sitting at sea just waiting to be used. Her response was quite a broad, pragmatic reply. She basically said that a demand for oil that is accessible is certainly nothing new for the cruise industry, and so her approach will be to see it as something that is just an ongoing struggle for cruise lines to find the most affordable oil for fueling ships now and in the future. She seems to think that this isn't going to be a major hurdle, and most importantly, she's very firm in her stance that no extra surcharges are going to be passed on to passengers as a result with this oil shortage and the rise in prices. So at least that's good news for passengers. It's simply something that's going to be absorbed by P&O and Carnival here in Australian waters, and also by the cruise industry in general, according to Marguerite's views on the matter. But of course, as anything can change at any given moment, we'll be watching it pretty closely through Kalkine and giving any updates to our viewers as they come on that front.
Well, that is great to hear overall. It sounds like the industry is really back on its feet there, and you are wrapping up that 4-day cruise, I believe. It sounds and looks excellent, I must say. But with that said, thanks very much for joining us and making time for us. That was Rose Jacobs of Kalkine Media.